back. What's your first memory of Emily? When can you first remember it?
Like a very first memory?
Very first memory of Emily.
Jeez. I mean, of course, I have like memories from when we were at the cottage playing together from childhood, things like that. But I'd say like I'd remember more from when she was 12 or 13 and
Right.
yeah, started hanging out with people and such.
But what was your first though? What's the first thing you can remember about her? Can you remember her like when you go back? So you were 4 when she was born.
Yeah.
So do you have any memory of her suddenly arriving in the household?
I remember picking her up at the hospital, actually.
You remember picking her up at the hospital?
Yeah, just in the back seat of the car,
Right.
vaguely. It was, yeah.
And was she like a troublesome?
Oh, I remember her being quite tenacious.
Right.
I'll say.
I can imagine she was a bit of a demanding baby.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
More when she got older as well. Just
Right.
center of attention type. For sure.
So
She hated her hair. I remember being very upset because my mom thought she looked like a boy, and so she got to have her ears pierced before me, and this was just like completely unfair to me because I'm like, just because my hair is longer doesn't mean I shouldn't be allowed to have my ears pierced. Didn't appreciate it.
So was she the youngest daughter?
No, she's the middle.
She's the
There's one
middle.
more sister who's
Okay.
3 years younger.
Okay. And so, do you feel that Emily got very kind of preferential treatment then as she was younger because she had her ears pierced? Like, were there lots of things whereby she would just get her own way?
I don't know about that. I do remember feeling that because she kind of was involved with maybe some unsavory people in high school that a lot of the attention was on her in terms of
Okay.
dealing with things and various issues where I kind of was just like very quiet and flew under the radar and didn't really, and felt that just because these things were happening doesn't mean that she was entitled to all the attention. So I remember being a little resentful about that for
Right.
sure.
So do you see yourself as very close to your sister?
I think that we're close, and closer now for sure. Less so when I, like in high school, especially because I went away to university,
Okay.
like fairly far.
Okay.
So we didn't really keep in touch, I think, for that. And again, like she was involved in various things in high school, so we were fairly distant at that point.
So she was, what, 14 when you went to university?
She would have been 15.
15.
So I would have gone at 18.
So what was she like as a 15-year-old? Was she like a handful?
Oh, goodness, yes. Yeah, I mean, how much are you comfortable revealing, Emily?
Oh, everything. We got some, don't worry, we've got...
No, okay. I just remember her causing my mother a lot of stress just from not coming home and kind of like
Right.
the people she was hanging out with and drug use and just like the types of behaviors. And I think I didn't even drink in high school. I think maybe I smoked a few joints and that was the extent of my bad behavior. And it really wasn't like...
Whilst Emily was a total party girl.
Yeah.
So when you first heard that she got busted for drug smuggling, right? Do you think, oh yeah, that's not a surprise?
I was still surprised
Yeah.
that just kind of the extent of the crime. Like
Right.
I think I expected something maybe a little more minimal. Like I don't know, like a lesser charge than what she was actually
So
being
where
charged
were
with.
you? Where were you when you heard?
I was actually at home and I actually picked up the phone call because I went to our home line and I was the only person in the house
Okay.
at the time. And they just, this woman just said that my parents had to call them immediately. And so I
Right.
called my mom at the cottage and then she
Right.
called me back about 5 minutes later and kind of told me what exactly had happened. Which was not what I was expecting. I thought maybe, I don't know, there could have been like an accident or something
Right.
like that, but that never crossed my mind that she had been arrested, for sure.
So your mum calls you back. Was your mum in tears when she calls you back? Or
She was very upset, yes.
Right, okay.
My dad came over later that day and he
Right.
was pretty hysterical, I'd say.
So what did your mum say to you? She said, can you remember what your mum said? Can you remember the
Oh,
words?
Emily's been arrested for drug trafficking.
Emily's been arrested for drug
Yeah,
trafficking.
and like she didn't have many details at that point. I
Right.
think it was just like get to the holding cell where she was and
Right.
kind of go from there.
Right.
And I was like, all right then.
So what was the next event that transpired for you in that sequence?
For me, I mean, I think I just chilled at home.
Right.
Because I was by myself. I was like, all right. There's no one really to talk to about
So did
this.
you go and when did you, like, your mum came back and then your mum kind of, dad got involved. And did you go and see Emily at all? Or?
No, I don't
No.
actually remember when I saw her after that.
Right.
I feel like I probably left somewhere. It was like, I don't remember where I was living at the time or why I was at the house, but yeah, it's been a while.
So
Things
do you
are a
feel
little
that
patchy.
so do you just kind of block that piece out there and just...
I was
I
just
mean-
kind of trying to be more there for my parents, I
Okay.
think, because it obviously hit them like really, like it was hard for me too, but I felt like I was more of a support figure as
Right.
opposed to someone to be affected by it.
So were your parents ranting and raving about it, or were they just
I
kind
think
of
they're more
clowning?
hysterical at the time. They just didn't really, and there were so many unknowns as well.
Right.
You don't really know we had never dealt with something like this before.
Right.
And I know she'd had her former DUI charge, that was kind of like an in and out, and then
Yeah,
you deal
yeah.
with it later. It's not
Yeah.
something that you're in jail for an extended period of time unless
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
multiple offenses, I guess. But
So you were supporting the parents. Were you living at home at the time?
goodness, how long ago? Do you remember the exact date?
2015 summer.
Okay. So I was probably just home. No, I would have been finishing my last year of my second degree. So
Okay.
I think I was just home for the weekend because I would have been living in Toronto at the time,
Okay.
going into fourth year because I went to Ryerson. So
Okay. And did that impact your studies at all, you think? Or?
no, I
No,
don't think
okay.
so. I was fairly far removed from it at the time because
Okay.
I just would have gone back to school in the fall. And
Just carried on
just
with
kind
it?
of like devoted myself to studying
Right.
at that time. So.
So did you ever meet her co-accused?
No, I had
No.
no knowledge of him, and I've never met him
Right.
since then. I didn't realize it's not like she brought her friends around
Right,
the
right.
house, or we
Right.
went out with him or anything like that. So
So it's kept very separate from...
yes, very separate.
So when your parents were going through this whole piece about, I wonder if she's done it before, I wonder if it's the only time, I wonder if all the other times she travelled, we just didn't know and she just didn't get caught. Where were you standing
On that opinion,
on that opinion at the time?
I mean, my sister and I had also had our suspicions. We felt for a while that my parents had been kind of turning a blind eye, perhaps, to things.
Okay.
Just because, I know how much it costs to travel. I know how much it. We're
Yeah.
not doing these things. We're not
Yeah.
going on international flights all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And then there were just other behaviors that we would
Right.
notice when we were all together that kind of would led one to believe that something was up, and it just didn't make sense. I think the expenses were the big thing. I'm like, how is someone that doesn't really have any concrete job that I can foresee, on
Right.
the surface, how are they
Right.
paying for this condo? How are they doing this?
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
I live in Toronto too. I
Right.
know how much it costs to rent this place.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we just had a lot of questions. And when this happened, it was like, okay, if you start looking back over things, like
Right.
maybe this was going on far before.
Right.
Maybe not to this extent or like
Right.
the volume
Right.
that she was carrying, but
Right.
kind of.
So
Something was going
do
on.
you still believe that?
I believe that she wasn't trafficking drugs. At times I wonder maybe for me, income wasn't the most traditional of
Right.
ways to obtain an income.
Right.
But I don't think she was trafficking
Okay.
on an international level previous to this.
Right.
Or if it wasn't as many times as it would seem, maybe perhaps once before,
Right.
with a little smaller amount as a trial
Right.
run. But yeah.
Right.
It's hard to know, though. I don't really know the depth
So-
that these things go to. So.
But you feel you're close, even though she hasn't. So do you think your sister lies to you then?
I think she's lied to me in the past. I don't think she lies to me now. I think definitely in the past. I think she lied to everyone, though. I think you would admit that as well. I don't think that's a groundbreaking thing.
So she's a different person today than she was
Yeah, absolutely.
before going into prison?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you didn't go and see her in prison at all?
I didn't. I sent her some paperwork and it was rejected. I forget why. Some a box I didn't tick or something. And I thought I examined it pretty thoroughly. So,
Right.
but I think my aunt tried to send in her paperwork something 3 times and it was rejected. They're very
Right.
stringent about their regulations and
Right, who goes to see
and
whom?
I believe that. Yeah. My mother, they flagged her driver's license for something ridiculous, what was it, heroin? And my mother's the most clean cut kind of
Yeah.
goody two shoes type you've ever met. So
Right. So do you think that being in the system, or Emily having put the whole family in the system, do you feel that has affected anything? Is there anything?
In terms of?
Well, just anything, like, you know, so do you feel like you're part of a flagged family now?
A flagged family?
A flagged family, or, you know?
Well, I
her
hope
sister's
not. I mean, I've heard only positive things.
Okay.
I mean, I do hesitate at times. Like, I wouldn't kind of like tell my coworkers what had happened,
Right.
I guess. But just because I worry about my own position and just how that would. You do wonder how it would reflect on you, and even if people are kind of supportive, if in the back of their minds they're like, I wonder what else is going on. Or if they're
So do you
judging
feel
you
that
because
people
of it.
always want to think the worst of other people versus,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
the glass is always half empty rather than being half full?
I think people will enjoy thinking the worst of other people because it makes them feel better kind of about themselves. So I think that's more like human nature, though. We kind of tend to tear
That's
others
probably
down.
true.
Yeah.
Very true, yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily specific to the situation.
So you didn't go and visit her. Did she write you any letters? Did you?
No, she didn't write me any letters. I didn't write her any letters either.
No letters? Did you communicate at all by email or anything? Nothing at all?
She didn't have internet access,
Okay.
so you'd right. You said you had no access to the internet or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
no net.
So your sister just disappeared for a number of years, really?
It wasn't years. It was 10 months.
10 months, yeah.
Yeah. So it went by like very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I was surprised actually as to how quickly it went by.
And how did your parents kind of deal with it as it progressively went through? Do you think they moved from a hysterical to an acceptance to a...
Well, I think they progressed far past that, like years ago, because no one expected the process to take as long as it did,
Okay.
from when she was initially arrested and then between the various trial and then finally sentencing. And I think it
Right.
was, oh my goodness, it must have been 3 or 4 years
Right.
after she was initially arrested,
Right.
which just seemed so, and almost like you stopped thinking that it was actually even going to happen. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so you just end up moving on with your life, and then
Okay.
it's just like one day, oh, okay, well, she's finally been sentenced. So,
Right. So, and how did your relationship with if we just talk about your younger sibling, so how did that relationship with your younger sibling go? Did it get stronger, or?
I think it did actually, yeah.
Yeah?
Emily and Heather had always been like a bit closer, but I did find that Heather and I became closer because of this whole process. I think we related a lot better going forward. I mean, there's a fair bit, I'm sure, of just, oh my God, how could she do that? And like shit talking in various forms, but
Right.
which may have contributed to us becoming closer.
So was that like a sense of how could she do it to me, or was it a sense of how could she do it to my parents, or?
I think it was just how
could
in
she do it
general,
in
like
general could
given
she do
all
it?
these things,
Right.
which I think I'm sure a lot of people have asked, like you kind of see these situations happening to maybe people that have been given less advantage in life.
Right.
So it's hard to believe when you see it happening to someone that you think maybe should have had no excuse.
Right.
But I don't know if I believe that anymore.
Do you think it's a natural progression from her? So often someone says, well, if you smoke cannabis, then your natural progression is harder drugs. So do you think that you, having seen her in school, going through kind of the rambunctious years of, 12, 13, 14, 15, do you think that it was almost a natural progression for her to go to harder drugs, and maybe not as far as it goes, because as far as it goes, it kind of seems...
I knew she was doing drugs.
Right.
I never thought that she was trafficking them.
Right.
Like that would, my mind never went there. It would just be more, I would have thought more that she just would have perhaps OD'd, or
Right.
kind of something would have happened in that sense where she just got, or ended up hospitalized or
Right.
in rehab or something, but
Right.
not arrested. Or if it was arrested, it was been for like possession or
Okay.
something simple.
So she was, what, 28? 27 when you were... How old were you? 4 years ago. How old were you when you were...
26.
So she was 26 when she was arrested. So she was travelling for, what, 4 or 5 years, I suppose? After?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was more the job, yeah. I just didn't understand how she didn't have a kind of 9-to-5 job,
Oh.
or
That's
really
not
any
bad.
job, it seemed.
Right.
She was
Yeah.
paying for all these things. I was annoyed. I'm like, I'm working. I'm so poor.
Right. So was there a bit of rivalry between you at that point?
No, I don't think
No.
there's ever been a rivalry.
Right.
No, I think it never. felt jealous or anything like that, or I ever felt like we competed or anything. So,
Right.
yeah.
So your parents are separated.
Mhm.
Before Emily was convicted of.
Yes. Yes. this
So a
happened
few years
before.
before. So do you feel that? What was the impact on you of your parents separating? How did you feel it impacted you?
I had an idea. Frankly, I had my suspicions. I'd found like various things over the years that kind of like indicated that perhaps things weren't as going as well as they presented them to be.
Right.
And my parents have never really told me much until, frankly, after the separation, in which case my mother confided in me all the time.
Yeah, of
So
course, yeah.
it was, so I don't think it had an impact on me, but again, I felt I was more there for my mother in kind of like a supportive sense and someone
Right.
to talk to. And like I was older at the time, it wasn't something that I couldn't handle. I would rather them kind of like be happy
Yep.
than stay together at that point. They'd been together for like a long time. I still consider it a successful marriage to be with someone
Right.
for 29 years.
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure. That is successful.
It's fairly rare to even
Yeah.
get to that.
It's hard to hold it for 5 years these days.
Yeah,
let alone
exactly.
20, yeah.
So like I never
Yeah.
saw it as kind of like a failure on their part.
Right. So how old were you when they separated?
I guess when it first started, I would have been 26 or 27, maybe 27,
Okay.
when kind of the initial blowout,
Break it up, yeah.
happened. But then it progressed. It kind of like carried on. It was like this back and forth for so
Yeah.
long.
So do you feel that, I mean, she often says that part of her life, that kind of breakup was very emotionally difficult for her, and that it was part of her rebellion piece, right? But you say she was rebellious.
I mean, to be honest, I remember my mom crying about her when she was 13. So I
Right.
think she was rebellious
Right,
far
so she was
before
rebellious
that.
all the way through, right?
Yeah, she's been rebellious since I remember her being a teenager.
So do you feel that you had to be like the serious one? Like you had to be the older sister, because now your mum's going through this stuff and your other sister's just not, did you feel she was very irresponsible in the whole thing because she wasn't actually giving your mum any support?
Perhaps, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, I
and
can see that. Yeah.
So you were the older sister, and you had to deal with both Emily and Heather.
Yeah, I didn't really think it like how. It was more about being there for my parents, I'd say. Like I
Right.
didn't really, but then I didn't consider the impact on them, frankly, as well. So.
So you didn't worry about her really, because
No, I didn't. I just felt it was more about them, kind of,
Okay.
and supporting my mom since she
Right.
took it like very hard.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So it didn't, and I was upset, but I was fine. Like I was managing fine. It didn't affect my school or
anything.
job or anything like that. So
So, how do you think so how do you think your dad took it when, because obviously you had the breakup, and so 3 years later, she got busted, right? Roughly,
yeah.
right? So, had the family kind of settled in those 3 years?
Yeah, like my dad was living apart.
Right.
I think they were both dating like new people at that
Okay.
point. I'm not sure if my mom was dating. I know my dad was dating because he started
Right.
dating like right away. But yeah, I felt like we had frankly settled, or at least as much as we could in that time.
So what did that moment of Emily now jumping? So obviously the forefront for many years was your mum and dad and their breakup, and that's the family. What's the thing? That's not crisis, but that's the family kind of the big thing that's going on in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly it all switches back to Emily. What do you feel that did to the family unit? Do you feel the family unit kind of got tighter? Did it kind of like, were there arguments between the family about it? And
There
you
I
should
don't
have
recall there
said it
actually
and-
being like too many arguments.
Right.
I know I was frustrated because it was again like something else that we have to deal with, and it's like
Right.
we just kind of like reset and felt like things were going well, and now it's just like something else. And yeah, I remember being in eggs. It's like, why is it always like just more drama? Like,
So you position yourself really as the the older sibling and the family fixer, right?
To a certain extent, I think just more like trying to fly. I think for the longest time, I just tried to fly under the radar, not
Right.
really like, which is frankly my life motto in general.
Right. But now that the parents are separated and Emily's in trouble, I guess your mum leans to you now.
Yes,
at that point.
So it was like yet another thing to kind of.
So yet another thing.
You had to be supportive because.
So
And she was still like, she wasn't really over the breakup even, frankly. Like she was over it as much as she could, but it was still something that she was dwelling on and wanted to talk
Sure.
about like a lot.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Long
It's not
time.
something you get over in a day or even a year for her.
Yeah.
Like it was a very drawn out process. So
Right.
it was now she needed support in two ways, both with Emily and then with kind of figuring her life out going forward. So.
Do you think in some ways it's a very helpful thing for her, having kind of Emily took a bit of the distraction from
I don't know if call it helpful. I don't think it was the distraction she would have wanted.
Yeah, I know. But sometimes these things just take away from, you can no longer think about your breakup or whatever. Now you have to worry about your child.
No,
Oh,
I think she
just-
still
it was
dwelled
ju-
on
it
the
just
breakup because
compiled.
it just more highlighted the fact that like her and my dad were not a pair anymore.
Right.
So now they had to kind of negotiate like how they were going to manage Emily, and then
Right.
Emily was living with my mom, so she
Right.
was she felt like my dad wasn't pulling his weight in that sense because my dad didn't have to kind of check up on things. He didn't have to make sure she was adhering to her bail conditions.
Right.
Like,
So was
he was
Emily-
like fairly far removed actually from the whole process.
So has
aside
Emily
from-
still been very rambunctious in this whole period of time because she didn't take it seriously enough, you think? I know that she got...
I believe you reached your bail once. Yeah, I did feel like you weren't like taking it overly seriously, but I still think she probably didn't believe at that point that
Yeah,
anything was
sure.
going to come of this. Like, it was more of an inconvenience. Like, like, well, this is annoying. I don't want to have to deal with this. So,
Right.
but
So your mum became a bit of a single parent and your dad wasn't really
Yeah.
around to support in the way.
not as much as I feel he could have been. I think my mom was definitely the primary support, and even now, like Emily's was living with her when she was released from jail, and
Right.
yeah, my mom was definitely there. A lot
So
more.
did
I
you
don't
say
think
this to
that's-
your dad?
I've talked to him about it, but he was also, I think he was happy. He was a bit more removed from the situation and kind of like dating again and traveling and like he was trying to restart his own life. So
Right.
I think my parents have different parenting styles, and my dad definitely pulls away and kind of like manages things from a distance. Like I'm not trying to, this is not me knocking him because he's
Yeah.
like a great father, and
Yep.
he'll still always be there when I need to talk to him or if I need
Yeah.
like advice on.
And you're an
life.
adult.
Yeah,
Now. So,
exactly.
yeah.
But in terms of being present, I'd say my mother was much more present. But that's more like how we were raised as well. Like she was a stay-at-home parent while my dad worked, so that's always
Right.
been the dynamic. That's
Right.
not surprising.
So, what would you say is Emily's been out on parole now for, how long? Been out on parole?
8 months.
8 months. So what would you say were the biggest changes in her that you've seen?
I think she has the same energy. It's just directed towards like a productive cause. It's not directed towards activities or people that are kind of seedy or like a partying situation, or like she has all this energy, but it's now like it's going into her business, it's going into her social media. She's like actively working at rebuilding her life as opposed to just kind of returning to the party scene and becoming involved in that again. So it's just a completely different use of the same energy.
And what do you feel about her comms and kernels business?
I like it. I know it's hard to get into business, so I worry kind of about if this is going to be like a successful long term, but I think
Yeah.
it's a great idea and a great initiative.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's not successful long term because it will take it somewhere. That's
Yeah,
the whole,
exactly.
all businesses are really
It's
working documents, right?
Yeah,
So,
and she's put so much effort into it. That, yeah, it's good. And I think it's very hard. Like I could never run my own business. Yeah.
so what do you do?
I'm a nurse.
You're a nurse, okay. Okay. So, what about you in your youth then? You two didn't go out like most sisters, kind of 3 years apart. They go out and they hang out together and they go out and party
Not
together.
really.
At what point did you separate from that, or were you never like that?
I don't think we ever really were like that. Like once in a while when I'd come home for university, we would go out, but I think there was more animosity between us when we were younger, and Emily was kind of doing all these things and I didn't really relate all that well. So we just kind of, like, we didn't really fight, but we weren't making plans really.
Right.
And like I said, I didn't live in Hamilton after I went away to school. So while she was the height, I'd say, of like the various behaviors I'd already had gone.
Okay. What about before that, when she was 7 and you were 10?
Well, yeah, I mean, we were raised...
You were hanging out, right?
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a cottage that we would
Okay.
go to all summer, and so
Okay.
basically all we did was swim and
So mess
canoe
around.
and such.
So you think like 12 was the point at which?
I think that's more when she was 12 or 13, that's when she started hanging out with kind of the people that would eventually cause trouble in high school and stuff like that. Is that fair? Or,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, and kind of getting more into drugs and drinking, and we weren't in the same circles whatsoever.
Right.
It didn't make sense. And
What about you? So you're really telling me that you just kind of sailed through this and it didn't affect you too much? Because you're so distant?
like the arrest?
Just the whole piece.
I'd say I was less distant. I was still in school though, like finishing
Right.
nursing, and so I was in Toronto.
You're just
and,
focused on that, and
Well,
you're
yeah, and
doing
like
set
it was
friends.
it's a pretty intense degree, so
Right.
I kind of wanted to. That was my main focus for sure.
Right.
Like, it wasn't-
So what about like friends and boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever? Were you like ranting to them about your sister? You just
yeah,
got
I was ranting.
right. Just saying you can't believe what my sister's going to do now.
I think I don't know. She appreciate this. I think I was just more frustrated with the length of time it took, and then the money that went into it, because I'm like, that money could have like paid for my like tuition, and now I wouldn't accept it, which I feel was like a good use of like
Right.
these funds as opposed to like court cases.
Right.
And it's like, so it kind of felt like she was being like rewarded in that sense for doing something wrong, where I
like
kind of
it was
had to
a-
pay my own tuition for doing things that I thought was like
So have you ever
quite
thought?
practical.
Have you ever thought about invoicing her for 50% of that money that was spent on court cases? You know, I think
I know
that's perfectly reasonable, right? Right, she should invoice you for 50% of that.
She can make a few
That's right.
student loan payments for me.
Yeah.
Once your business takes off, and pay off my OSAP.
So, anything you've never said to her that you'd like to say to her? Like on camera, anything that you'd actually like to say to her, like, God, you're a nightmare, Emily, or...
I mean, I think she knows that she was kind of like very draining for a long time. I hope that's not
So
an
she,
offense issue, but she was just a drain on the family.
but she wasn't toxic, she was just a drain.
Yeah, I mean, that's toxic in its own way. 'Cause,
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt like she kind of just used people, and there was no kind of consideration as to how that would affect people, and the burden she would place on other people, and the emotional burden to my parents and financial, and it's like, oh, well, Emily, Emily's going to do what she's going to do, and she'll get what she wants, and then, yeah. So
Do you think she continues to do that today? Just,
I think she's a lot better now, absolutely. I think she's in a completely different direction, and I absolutely had my doubts when she was released, for sure.
Right.
I wasn't really sure where things were going to go. She'd kind of head back to Toronto. We were involved in kind of the same thing. But,
right.
yeah, it's panned out so far better than
Yeah,
anticipated.
she seems to have done very well so far. And she seems to kind of be putting all of her focus into the into the kind of business.
And I hope this isn't also her glossing over and telling me something that she wants me to hear also.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right.